And honestly, man, I think we should stick right there because something that has been a topic through this entire season and something that we've talked about on multiple times, the transfer portal, it's
Yeah.
going crazy, man. I mean, people are going left and right. And I got to be honest with you, man. And I got to ask you, I mean, to me, this seems like this is the wild, wild west. This is the most, I don't want to call them transactions, but the most just turnover that I've ever seen in one individual off season. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's you're absolutely right. I mean, you have, for example, Deion Sanders packed up and went to Colorado. Now everyone wants to go to Colorado. You've got Matt Rule coming back to Nebraska. Fickle going to Wisconsin from Cincinnati. Like, you've got big time coaching moves. So now players are like, oh shoot, I can play for that coach at that kind of school. Like, it's
right.
You've got 5-star recruits from last year that maybe aren't getting the playing time they were promised. So it's like, well, screw this, I'll go play there where I'll start for sure. Like, it's insane. You've got a group. There's like 4 or 5 Alabama players, if I'm not mistaken, that have packed up and all gone to TCU. Like,
right,
you got groups of players all going to the same school. Like, it's insane. It's basically what NBA free agency was back when the Miami Heat built that all-star team, and it's insane. You've got all these kids talking, and man, wouldn't it be cool if we played together at this school? And then it's like, okay, let's go.
Right. And it's never been as much of a possibility as it is right now. I mean, a lot of these guys you're seeing, they're getting immediate eligibility. They're able to play next year. And I mean, look, you talked about it. All these teams that are kind of building up. Collar. I mean, Deion was not quiet about basically opening the doors and saying, hey, everybody, I'm bringing baggage, but anybody else that wants to come play for me, come on. And as you've seen, he's gotten a bunch of people. But Oregon, shout out to Alex Schomburg.
Yeah.
I mean, how many guys did they bring in the transfer portal? And really,
like 5-star players, like
right. And it really makes you, it gets you excited. I know the season is not over. We still got the championship, the pro day, everything going into the draft. But it really kind of gets you excited, like, oh, wow, okay, this guy's going here, this guy's going there. Ooh, okay, let's see what happens.
That's exactly like Michigan. Like, for me, looking at our team, the one place I was worried about for next year was the offensive line. Yeah. Well, we brought in 2 tackles and a center, which are the 3 spots that are leaving. I was like, okay, we might be all right there. And then we brought in a 4 or 5-star freshman, depending where you look at it, like true freshman transfer in Ernest Hausman to play linebacker for us. And it's just like, you start looking at this and it's like, okay, maybe we'll retool and be ready to go again. Like, it really makes this offseason interesting.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I hate to say this, but I know with some of these guys, you talked about Hausman and then you got Josiah Stewart. Some of these guys like, dang, I wish y'all could have played for us last week. Like, we could have used you then. But we'll get into that. That. Honestly, I think the biggest name, you sent me a message right when it happened. And right as I'm receiving your message, I had my finger on the send button to send you the exact same message. Sam Hartman, somebody we talked about earlier this year as being somebody that was in the Heisman hype, in the contention for Heisman. Obviously, he had that injury, an undisclosed injury earlier in the season. He was able to still come back and have a solid year. I mean, over 3,700 yards, 38 TDs, 12 interceptions for Wake Forest. Had them ranked for a while. It kind of fell off towards the end of the season, but he's headed to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it. Notre Dame, rough start. They had a solid coach. They have a nice defense, and they have running game. They have weapons, but it was always the quarterback. Is this guy it? This guy can't do it. Sam Hartman is NFL pro-style quarterback. This guy can really change something for them. Do you agree? Like, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. I definitely think he's going into next year as a top 5 college quarterback. And I don't think there's any real debate on that. So you get a team that was a quarterback away in most people's eyes, and you give them a top 5 quarterback, look out. Notre Dame is going to be a problem next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're adding a guy that is thrown for almost 13,000 yards, over 100 TDs. The dude averages at like 8 yards per attempt. Okay, the guy is a playmaker. Yeah, absolutely, man. So shout out to him. He's been around a while. This guy came in 2018 and still playing.
He's first or second in like every ACC category, including total touchdowns. Like,
so let me ask you this, and something that I don't think has been brought up. Are you surprised that he stayed? The last couple of years, I know after last year, it was a lot of hype for him, especially coming into this year. I guess he didn't have the year. Last year he had over 4,000 yards. He only had 3,700 this year, but still solid numbers. Are you surprised that he stayed, and then also that he transferred to Notre Dame?
I'm not, because if you look at it, he missed those 3 games to start the season. So that's a chunk of big time games gone, and those were games where he could have really piled up those stats. And then he had those first 3 good games when he played, and then there was a 3-game stretch again where the majority of those 12 interceptions came.
Yeah.
You take those 3 games out, you're looking at about 30 touchdowns and like 5-6 interceptions.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even less than that. So you give him Marcus Freeman and that coaching staff and that team in South Bend and that schedule that they have, he's going to put up a ton of numbers, and he might be a first-round quarterback in 2024.
I can see it. I mean, you sit there and look at this draft class that will be coming up in 2024. Sam Hartman, Caleb Williams. You know what I mean? These are elite names just with those 2 right there. And then you got a bunch of other guys potentially coming out, man. So this can only get better, in my opinion, for them. Notre Dame, as we know, went 9-4 this year. Just came off of a great game against South Carolina, where they pulled out the victory 45-38. I'm excited. I'm excited because we've been on here. Many people have been on here talking about Notre Dame. Have they fallen off? But look, they're consistently getting 9 and 10 wins. I know they don't do good in CFP.
With a first-year head coach.
Thank you. Come on now. These guys can play. Yeah.
Next year we get to see Sam Hartman versus Caleb Williams. Notre Dame USC.
Come on now. Man. Come on. That's what I can't wait for, man, because these are 2 primetime players ready to go. And we've seen, shout out to Caleb, Heisman Trophy winner, and unfortunately wasn't able to get it done against a very, very upbeat, tough, underdog mentality Tulane team. I'm so excited that they got that dub. From 2-10 to what? 12-2? Come on now. Let's go. But having Hartman come to Notre Dame, playing USC, who's very hungry and is getting a number of recruits themselves. Oh man, it makes you look for 2024. He said he can't do it by himself. True statement.
True.
Yep. No, I do not think he will be by himself. They're going to be returning a number of guys, and that coach getting another year under his belt. You start getting some of your recruits.
And not to mention a quarterback of that caliber with the transfer portal still open will entice some weapons to go there. Absolutely.
Exactly. And that's what and that's the key. Getting him there early, just like in free agency. You get a big name guy in free agency in the NFL. Now all these other guys are like, oh, that's where he went. Okay, let's try that. Let's see what they got going on over there. But look, let's go back to this transfer portal. Like we said, it's crazy. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. Travis Hunter, obviously the number 1 recruit. Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, transferring to Colorado. Let me ask the obvious question, the elephant in the room. Does this make a team that was by far probably the worst team in the country? Does this make them an instant contender?
No. I think we got to be realistic with expectations for Colorado this year. I think you look at about 6, 7, maybe 8 wins.
Yeah.
Because you still got to play Utah. You still got to play USC. Yes. You still have to play Oregon. It's still very good teams in that Pac-12 you have to play. And I didn't even mention UCLA, Oregon State, all these other teams. Like, the Pac-12 is a very good conference.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you give it a year or two before you really look at them as conference title contenders. But they're a contender in the sense of being bowl eligible this year, I think. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. And look, there's a stench on Colorado. I mean, look, they were rough. They didn't get their first win to, I believe, like week 6 or maybe week 7, and it was not pretty at all for this team. Their coach was fired midway through the year. So yeah, Dion coming in is nice. And you're gonna bring people just off of the name of it being Deion Sanders, but this isn't Jackson State. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between a Jackson State and a Colorado, and then obviously, like you said, everybody they have to play. It's going to be a struggle in that first year. I mean, and hopefully he can get those guys and they can all gel under him. But let's temper our expectations to see kind of how things play out with the teams. And I'm really interested in seeing how Shedeur Sanders plays in D1.
I want to see him at Div 1. Yep.
Exactly. I want to see what he is, because all the hype and all the attention because of him being Deion's son and him playing at Jackson State, and albeit playing well,
very well, yeah.
You're with the big boys now. Let's just say that, you know.
Yeah. Now he's got some help. Like they brought in they got 3 and 4 star recruits. They didn't get the 5 stars outside of Travis Hunter. I was just looking at this one, but they brought in tight ends. They brought Jimmy Horn Jr. I didn't realize he was a college player at this point. As a wide receiver, like you've got some help, especially offensively, coming from the transfer portal. But yeah, I think it's gonna take a little bit, as it should.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna take time, and you know what? To some extent, I'm glad everybody didn't just leave and go to play with Deion. I'm glad let there be some growing pains in this, because
absolutely
shout out to Deion and everything he's done. But there is a little bit of swagger and hype that goes into it. It makes it, you're kind of like, okay, man, come on, bro. This ain't Jackson State.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely see. But look, going back to that transfer portal, I mean, there's names left and right. We talked about Hartman leaving Wake Forest. Well, in his place, NC State's ex-quarterback Devin Leary is now going to Wake.
Is he? I thought he was going to Kentucky.
Well, no, he's going to Kentucky. Brennan Armstrong is going to Wake. That's what I saw. I saw one of the ACC guys going. My bad. Thanks for that. Yeah, Brennan Armstrong is going to Wake, but Devin Leary going to Kentucky. These guys were 2 guys coming into this season that were highly touted. These guys were guys that, NC State was ranked top 15, and we were all sitting there saying, watch out for NC State. Then he got hurt, and things just kind of fell apart. They weren't the same, even though they beat my team. You know what I mean? But with Brennan Armstrong there, I'm eager to see kind of him getting back in that passing offense. He has some wide receivers. But between him, Brennan Armstrong, the year he had, Devin Leary getting back, going to Kentucky. I mean, what are your thoughts? What do you think about these guys going elsewhere? Do you think they can recreate what they had last year coming into this year?
Kentucky for Devin Leary worries me a little bit, just because what's been the selling point on Will Levis looking at the draft? Yeah. Well, he doesn't really have much help.
Yeah.
I mean, he had the running game, but when it comes to the passing game, there wasn't much there. So for someone like Devin Leary, who, again, could be one of these top quarterbacks in that 2024 draft, it's like, man, I think he could have picked a better place to go. But Brennan Armstrong, that's a definite upgrade going from Virginia to Wake Forest. Because, I mean, we saw what Sam Hartman can do. Now we'll see if it was Sam Hartman or if that's a good enough team for a quarterback to just hop in and play.
Right.
But Armstrong needed to get out of there, needed to change the scenery. Because that was a guy we were talking about as one of these sleepers come draft time.
Yeah.
And he did nothing this year. So he definitely needed to move.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about a guy that had over 4,000 passing yards the year before. And to completely fall off, and albeit they had a different coach, the scheme kind of changed up a little bit. Some of his receivers left, but he had 2 of his top receivers still that returned to play with him, and it just was not the year that they expected. So hey, best of luck to Devin Leary at Kentucky, and also Brennan Armstrong at NC State. another quarterback. We talked about this. DJ Ungalele. He went off to Oregon State.
Yeah.
So that
After
should be
his
interesting.
brother, a 5-star edge rusher, committed to Oregon.
Right.
So
that, yeah. You want me to say it? Do you want me to? I'll say it for you, Nathan. They lost to Maryland. All right. They lost to your team. Now Lear didn't play that game. Absolutely, man. And if they can get their guys, I hate. And Nathan, you talked about this. Shout out to you for bringing this up. I hate that a lot of their receivers, didn't play. You talk about Grant didn't play. Who's the other guy?
Dante Demas.
Dante Demas. He didn't play in that game. So I mean, the score kind of reflected that. And NC State had some guys that were sitting as well, but it was a good game, and there's a lot of promise there at Maryland. You discussed that all year.
Oh yeah, I've been saying all year. I thought they were an 8-9, maybe 10-win team, and they finished 8-5. So, Maryland was a team I was scared of the week we played them, and they damn near beat us. So Maryland's trending in the right direction. I love what that coaching staff is doing there. They're doing a phenomenal job from what it was before they got there, because it was bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was rough. It definitely was. So shout out to them for getting it, continually getting it done. Yeah, you saying Jarrett, Demas, Copeland, it was happening. They would leave for the draft. Absolutely. Yeah, and they did, and that's definitely a conversation we will definitely have. Then Alabama got CJ, a good tight end. I saw he transferred out as well.
Yeah.
So
that hurts a little bit, but
it does. Hopefully, you can get some recruits. Like Alex said, they're building a good culture over there. You know what I mean? Where guys are buying in, and it's a disciplined culture, and I really like what they've done. They've been in every game. In y'all game, it was what you had. Quorum had like a 200-yard day. It took that type of game to kind of hold him. But Talia was definitely, Superman in it, balling out.
They took Ohio State to their absolute limit too. So it's you're fighting with. I mean, you're fighting with two of the top dogs in the country, not just the conference.
Yeah.
So Maryland should be very proud of what they've done.
Right. Yeah. So the name of the game right now is building on that success. Yeah. So hopefully we can see Maryland build on that in this coming year. And let's see where they go from here. One of the quarterbacks, to continue the quarterback conversation, one of the quarterbacks that I'm very interested in seeing, somebody that made a name for himself this year, Hudson Card out of Texas.
Yeah.
Coming into the season, obviously it was Quinn Ewers, and it was Arch Manning. You know what I mean? It's like we just bypassed Hudson Card, but then you go to that Alabama game. Ewers gets hurt very early in the game. Hudson Card comes in and damn near beats Alabama, who at that time, top 3 in the country. Mm-hmm. He's going to Purdue. And at first I was kind of like, okay. Purdue had Aiden O'Connell, so you know what kind of passing game they have. But then we find out Drew Brees is going to kind of be on that coaching staff with them. I'm getting really excited about what Purdue's bringing up next year. I mean, I know you kind of can't, but what do you tell me about that?
I mean, I'm excited because it boosts the level of the entire conference. When you get these kind of players and these kind of coaches coming in, it's only good for the conference as a whole. But we saw Hudson Card come in and just about beat Alabama after Ewers went down. And he had a couple very good games after that. Yeah. Like this is a good quarterback going to a team that's on the rise. They finished 8-6. I mean, they basically gave up the bowl game to LSU because O'Connell didn't play and a bunch of these guys just sat out.
Yeah, it
was bad. But an 8-win football team, nonetheless. 8-5 going into that. They won the Big Ten West. I mean, it was totally up for grabs, but they won it.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see who they actually get as the head coach and if Brees stays on and what they have for that coaching staff, because this could be a dangerous team in that Big Ten West next year with an ascending Wisconsin with Luke Fickell, an ascending Nebraska with Matt Rule. You've got it's Iowa with McNamara and Eric Allnell. You've got a few very good teams in that Big Ten West that we'll see what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, and speak on that a little bit. Speak on the Big Ten and how that's going. I mean, I know your tight end, Eric Hall, he transferred to Iowa. We talk about Hudson Card. Ernest Hausman goes from Nebraska to Michigan. Talk about your guys, because there's a lot of movement in your area. And I don't want to talk the rumors of your coach. I mean, talking transferring or potentially getting out. But like there's a lot of action going in there, because Final Four this year had 2 Big Ten teams. So that brings a lot more attention, a lot more recognition to a very big, very solid Big Ten conference. So talk to me about all the people coming to you.
Well, not to mention, just with that 2 teams in the Final Four, you had another team in the top 10 that just won a New Year's Six Bowl as well.
Yep.
So
pretty handily
those
too.
3, and you got those 3 teams right up at the top, and then you're probably a year or 2 away from Wisconsin and Nebraska being real problems again.
Yeah.
Who knows what's happening with Michigan State, because one year they're up at the top and the next year they're not bowl eligible. So we'll see what happens there. They brought in a few more good recruits this year, so they could be dangerous again. Like I said, Maryland is always a problem. We'll see if they can recover from losing those 15 players to the transfer portal. Ohio State lost it's not transfer portal, but it's recruiting, lost a pretty big prospect for 2024. Mm. They had the number 1 recruit. I can't remember his first name, but it's Dominic Raiola's son. Oh. The old center for the Lions was the number 1 quarterback for the 2024 recruiting class. He is decommitted. So Ohio State lost a player there. I know Michigan, like I said, they got Hausman. We got Stanford's tackle and center. We got Arizona State's tackle to kind of rebuild that offensive line. Penn State brought in a few good receivers to replace Parker Washington and some of these guys that are heading out the door. Iowa had McNamara and Eric All. You just with these high profile coaches and some of these high profile players coming to some of these schools, it's all across the board. It's not just Ohio State anymore. You got big name players going to Penn State, to Michigan State, to Wisconsin, Nebraska. Yeah. I consider Hudson Card a big time player. So Purdue, definitely. You've got players going all across the conference, and then we're 1 year away now from USC and UCLA joining the fold. It's huge for this conference. Absolutely huge. And like you said, the idea of getting the 2 Big Ten teams in the playoff, because at first it was only 2 SEC teams could get in. Mm-hmm. Well, no, the conference has shown that they're among the best. And while they both lost, this is the first time where both semifinals were single-digit games.
Right.
So it's just to go to the biggest stage and put on the performances both teams did. It's huge for the conference.
Absolutely. And let's be honest, both teams scored over 40 points. Your game, which we will discuss a little bit later, if you guys spotted them, 14 points? I mean, you take that away.
5 minutes of the game.
Right. You take that away, and what are we talking about in this game? And then you have Ohio State, who, for the most part, essentially gave it up.
Away from winning.
Right. But they were up in that game. At one point, 38-27? They were up a significant amount.
2 different times they were up 10 plus points.
So, yeah. So, and we'll definitely discuss that. But is there anybody else that you are looking at that maybe is a big name, or maybe somebody that we don't know about that potentially transferred outside of maybe your conference? I know Marshawn Lloyd out of South Carolina is going to USC. Colin Schlee is going from Kent State to UCLA. But who you see anybody else out there that might make a huge impact?
I'm looking at a few of these guys here. Just as an offensive line guy, Javion Cohen, an interior offensive lineman from Alabama going to Miami, is huge. They need all the help they can get there. Braden Fiske, a defensive lineman and defensive tackle from Western Michigan, is going to Florida State. They got another defensive tackle, a true sophomore from Miami. Florida State's going to be a real problem in your guys' conference next year. They've done a hell of a job here. LSU has picked up a few very good corners. Zy Alexander from, I believe it's a Div 2 school called Shorter.
Okay.
And they also got, on this website, it's the number 3 overall player in the transfer portal, corner Denver Harris from Texas A&M, is going to LSU as well. So Brian Kelly's building the defense there for sure, which is good because there were a lot of high-scoring games in LSU's season this year.
Yeah, absolutely, man. They definitely shocked a lot of people, especially out of that first game. But again, we didn't think Florida State was what they were. So to have that close, you see now both teams are that legit. Nathan saying the transfer,
and they play week 1 again this year.
Are you serious?
Florida State LSU again, yeah. Because I saw thing. It was like one of them won Florida State won the Cheez-It Bowl, and LSU won the Citrus Bowl, which is sponsored by Cheez-It.
Yeah.
So it was like a joke of like that commercial of like I'm feeling the cheesiest or whatever. It's like who's really feeling the cheesiest?
Right.
They opened the season against each other again. So look out for that game.
Absolutely. Hey, great question. Do you think the transfer needs some fixing? Absolutely. Speak on it, Alex. What do you think, man? How can we fix it?
I think you got to limit the immediate eligibility.
Yeah.
You can't. I think everyone should have immediate eligibility once, maybe twice, but you shouldn't be able to use it back to back. I think if I play my freshman season at, say, Michigan, and I'm like, screw this, and I go transfer to LSU, I can play immediately. But if I don't get the playing time there and I say, screw it, I'm going to USC, I should have to sit out a year.
Exactly.
I think that's the way to do it. Because one of the quarterbacks we didn't talk about is Kadon Slovis, who's on his 4th team in like 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Just transferred to BYU. Is, again, immediately eligible. And I think it's getting kind of ridiculous.
It is, man. Who it was another one. Tanner Mordecai. Didn't he transfer? I think he transferred somewhere else.
And JT Daniels and
right. Yeah. It like I opened this segment with, it is the wild, wild west. And between the transfer portal, between the NILs, I mean, look, there is a lot of room for things to be fixed. Absolutely, man. And there's a lot of things that it kind of stinks. Now, I will say this, though. One of the things that over the years that I always wanted was some version of this, because I do like having some of these smaller teams, like a TCU, prime example. TCU is built with transfers and different players that are absolutely playing like above what TCU is supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was one of the things that I saw in that game, not to go back to that, but it was they didn't kind of punch you guys in the mouth, like,
absolutely,
like we're here, you know what I mean? So that's what I like that the transfer portal did do. But we do need to get some parameters around it. And I like your idea, what you were saying.
Yeah, it's out of hand, and it needs to be contained.
Absolutely. So
thanks for watching. If you like that clip, be sure to check out the other great content from the Let's Talk Football community. And as always, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when more great content like this becomes available.